everyone.
Hi,
We made it.
you.
We're here. We did it.
Sorry. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys.
I'm gonna mute you all, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining the Southwest Center for Human Relations Studies at the University of Oklahoma for our very first webinar. I'm Asia Mukes, Communications and Project Manager here at the Center, and we are really excited about the expansion of NCORE to this monthly series. It has definitely been a labor of love getting this off the ground, so many thanks to the staff at the Southwest Center for supporting all the logistics that went into this new program. Our hope is that we continue the conference's tradition of working to improve racial and ethnic relations on college campuses by providing virtual learning opportunities on effective strategies to enhance access, social development, education, communication, and cross-cultural understanding for traditionally underrepresented populations. You may be surprised to learn that we receive over 600 abstracts for NCORE and have about a 20% acceptance rate. All of our abstracts undergo rigorous evaluation, and in that process, some abstracts submissions emerge as standouts. The webinar format has allowed us to extend the learning opportunity beyond the conference with timely, vetted, and thoughtful presentation topics to a wider audience. Registration is now open for the September webinar, The Intersection of Strengths and Social Identity, using the Clifton Strengths to engage conversation about difference with Dr. Daniel Almeida from Cal Poly. Registration for our October webinar, Introduction to Social Justice Models of Disability with Julie Alexander from Purdue, will open on October 1st. Remember that our first 3 introductory webinars are at no cost to participants. After October, each one will be $50 per participant. We still want you to have the webinar parties though, so feel free to invite your coworkers to your desk or to the conference room. We're also working on a fee structure for institutions who have a broader viewing audience. If you think your school or organization would be interested in subscribing to our entire webinar series, send me an email at ajiameux@ou.edu and we'll discuss it. I've gotten a lot of questions about the recordings of each of the webinars and where they'll live. Our introductory webinars will be uploaded to YouTube and embedded on our website within 2 weeks. We'll also send the link out via social media and email. After the introductory series, the video will be available as part of the institutional cost. Speaking of social media, make sure you're live posting. We want to know where you're at and where you're watching from. Tweet, Instagram, and Facebook pictures from your office with the hashtag NCORE and hashtag Start the Conversation Online. Today we have Crystal Jushka and Adrienne German from the Medical College of Wisconsin. Crystal is the undergraduate outreach coordinator and co-manages the Student Enrichment Program for underrepresented professions. She also serves as an inherent bias trainer for the Medical College of Wisconsin's chapter of the National Coalition Building Institute, advises the student health initiatives for pipeline program student organizations, and helps manage the Kaleidoscope film and research forum series that provides diversity programming to the campus. Adrienne is the high school outreach coordinator and co-manages the Student Enrichment Program for underrepresented professions. She too is an inherent bias trainer for the Medical College of Wisconsin's chapter of the National Coalition Building Institute and helps manages the Kaleidoscope Film and Research Forum series. She also serves as a member of the Ronald Reagan High School NAF Advisory Board and advises the Student Health Initiative for Pipeline Programs Student Organization. Together, they will discuss the Medical College of Wisconsin's Kaleidoscope program, which was developed to create a more welcoming campus, create cultural competence among students, staff, and faculty, and increase matriculation of underrepresented students. The Southwest Center is grateful for Crystal and Adrienne's expertise and skill, and congratulations on being the first webinar presenters. No pressure. And so I'm going to turn it over to Crystal and Adrienne.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adrienne German. I'm not sure if you guys can see me. Hold on. Okay, there we are. Hello, everyone. My name is Adrienne German. And this is, we want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We are very excited to be a part of NCORE's first webinar series. We want to thank them for allowing us to speak with you all today and share information with you about Kaleidoscope, improving a campus culture using a program with a diversity lens. Kaleidoscope has been a very successful program on our campus, and we like to think that it's making a positive impact as well. So our goal with sharing with you today is that we will give you enough information in hopes that you can create such a program on your campus and have just as much success as we have. I'm texting you, Brian. Hello? Okay, sorry about that, everybody. Let's try that again. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adrienne German, and this is Jushka, and we would like to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We're very excited to be a part of NCORE's first webinar series. We would like to thank them for inviting us to host today and share with you information about Kaleidoscope, improving a campus culture using a program with a diversity lens. Kaleidoscope has been very successful on our campus, and we like to think that it's making a positive impact as well. And so our hope with today's session is that we can provide you with enough information where you can create such a program on your campus and have just as much success as we've had. So before we dive into the details of how Kaleidoscope came about and all those great things, I would like to give you an overview of what we plan to share with you today. So the first thing we will do is give you an overview of the Medical College of Wisconsin, which you'll often hear us refer to as MCW for short. We will share with you the need for Kaleidoscope, how Kaleidoscope was created and implemented. We will also share with you how our program is evaluated, as well as share our successes and our challenges. We also want to give you some examples of what a Kaleidoscope session actually looks like, and then provide you with some takeaways. And then in the end, we should have time for questions. So again, we want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Crystal to share with you an overview of MCW. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. All right, thank you, Adrienne. As Adrienne mentioned, we want to give you a brief history of MCW. A lot of people have not heard of us, or we get confused with the University of Wisconsin. But we are our own private independent institution here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We've been around for quite a while. The medical school is celebrating its 125th anniversary this year, which is very exciting. And as you can see, we've been through several transitions throughout the school, or throughout the years, especially the medical school. And in the 90s, we added a graduate school of biomedical sciences, and more recently, 2 regional campuses in Green Bay and Central Wisconsin, or Wausau, Wisconsin, that really focuses on a 3-year medical school curriculum to encourage students from rural backgrounds or students who want to practice in rural areas to go into primary care, general surgery, and psychiatry, because those are high needs. We also most recently opened up a school of pharmacy last summer, and we something I omitted from the slide is we do have a Master of Science in Anesthesiology program. We do not have your traditional undergraduate student body. As you can probably tell, our student body is made up of several medical students, our MSA students, our graduate students and fellows, our pharmacy students, and also our graduate medical education, which consists of our residents and fellows who are practicing in our partner hospitals of Froedtert Hospital and Children's Hospital of Wisconsin here on our campus. We also wanted to include that our physicians and various other healthcare providers do participate in continuing medical education here. Also because our physicians make up a large part of our faculty here at the Medical College of Wisconsin. And even though we do not have an undergraduate student body, I do want to note that we have several pipeline and outreach programs here at MCW that do reach out to undergraduates, high school students, and middle school students to get them engaged in medicine and science and hopefully help them on their journey to medical school, graduate school, pharmacy school, or what have you. As I mentioned, we are located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Many of you are probably aware that Milwaukee is a very diverse yet segregated metro area. This is an overview kind of Milwaukee's population based on the different ethnicities. A lot of times this can result in the healthcare disparities here in Milwaukee. So MCW is very committed to the community and resolving these healthcare disparities. One thing to note in doing so is we do recognize many of our students and faculty do come from underrepresented in medicine populations, which we often refer to as URM. Each medical school defines what URM means for them. So here at MCW, our ethnic URM populations are African American Black, Hmong American, Puerto Rican, Mexican American, and Native American. We do recognize that students from other backgrounds, such as their first generation, have a disability, have English as a second language, from the LGBT community also bring diversity with them, but these are our target ethnic underrepresented populations. So at the time of this initiative of Kaleidoscope began, 13% of our medical students were from URM backgrounds. That's pretty standard across the board for medical schools, but it's still not great. Even more so, only 2.8% of our faculty were from URM backgrounds compared to the national average. Neither of the numbers are great for the diversity in medical school faculty, but we really wanted to work on it here at MCW. Not only to be more representative for our students to see themselves as future physicians and faculty members, but also there is a predicted physician shortage, especially among these populations. We wanted to make sure that physicians are representative of their community, and right now here in Milwaukee, these underrepresented populations are not represented in the physician workforce. So we're going to pause for a minute, just give you a question for consideration before we move forward is if you're thinking about doing a program such as Kaleidoscope on your campus, what specific diversity and inclusion issues are you facing right now, whether it's your campus or the surrounding community, that a program like this might address? Is it underrepresentation in your faculty and your students? Is there something going on in the community like health disparities that a program like this could address?
And so some of the issues that our campus wanted to address was number one, help diversify the medical field by increasing URM physicians. And then also helping to shift the culture here at MCW to be more inclusive of individuals from URM backgrounds. So with our vision, along with a grant that we received from Advancing in a Healthier Wisconsin Endowment, two diversity programs were created. One is an academic year program called Step Up, which stands for Student Enrichment Programs for Underrepresented Professionals. And with this program, we work with local middle school, high school, and college students. And our hope is that we work with local students to help prepare them for medical or graduate school. And then once they graduate from medical school, our hope is that they will stay here and practice locally. And so once we get students here to MCW, we want them to feel welcome. We want them to feel included and a part of our campus. And so that is where Kaleidoscope comes in. So what is Kaleidoscope? Kaleidoscope is a reoccurring campus-wide diversity program that was not only designed to help shift the culture here, but it was also designed to help enhance the medical school curriculum. So through Kaleidoscope, we are able to articulate the need for cultural competence among healthcare providers. We're also able to identify challenges and personal skills needed to provide competent care. And we're also able to use research results to help inform practices of medicine. And so we want to make sure that our current medical students, who will be our future physicians, and our current practicing physicians receive enough information that will help prepare them to work with patients from all backgrounds. And so thus helping the patients that they see feel more comfortable coming to see them, which in turn will help us reach our long-term goal, which is to alleviate health disparities. So in order to do this, the components of Kaleidoscope is that we offer a monthly film showing on a diversity topic and a quarterly research forum on a diversity topic. So every single month we do a session from 12 to 1 over the lunch hour where we're discussing a diversity topic. We have covered every topic from racism, ageism, sexism. We've done topics on Muslim Americans, Latino Americans, Native Americans, and we've just done a variety of topics. And so each one of these sessions is either has a discussion that's led by a MCW faculty member or a member from our community that is doing work around the topic that we chose. And so I'll talk to you a little bit later in more details about the actual program day. But overall, you know, in these sessions, we're providing vital information to our campus. And so our hope is that we are sharing information that's creating awareness, understanding, and appreciation for diverse beliefs, values, traditions, and practice of a culture. I think that we have been doing a great job of creating an environment where people feel comfortable coming to our sessions and sharing their honest opinions and personal experiences without feeling like they're being judged. I think it's a space where it makes people think about their own biases and prejudice, and it just creates this environment where people just want to come to. And I think that is a big part of why we have been successful. So in order to run Kaleidoscope and the other programs that we help run, of course, the big thing is funding. Funding is a big part of us being able to do the things that we do. So as I mentioned earlier, we did receive a grant from AHW. And so that allows us to run the program for 5 years. So in order to accomplish all the things that we want to accomplish, we eventually will have to look for other funding. And so we want you to start thinking about, if you want to do a program such as Kaleidoscope, where might your funding sources come from? So do you need to look at internal funds? Do you have institutional funds that will be available to help you support the program? Or might you have to reach out to other departments and develop partnerships to help run the program? Or would you have to seek external funds through like grants like we have? We are in our 3rd year, so we probably are going to have to start looking for funding pretty soon, probably right after this webinar today. But seriously, you know, we just want, that's a big part of us being able to do what we do. So we want you to start thinking about that for yourselves and your campus.
So Adrienne just went over the bare bones of what Kaleidoscope is, and when we began here at MCW at the end of 2015 and in early 2016, that's what we were given in order to develop what Kaleidoscope is now. So that is the direction that we had, but we needed to get more information about how this program really should look. So we met with some key stakeholders for inspiration and topic ideas. The Associate Dean for Student Affairs and Diversity at the time was very helpful. She's no longer with MCW. We miss you, Dr. Bragg, if you're listening. But she was very critical in giving us the vision for Kaleidoscope. It was her vision, and she had hopes for how it would help the medical school curriculum and help develop that welcomingness on campus for students. Further, we met with several diversity and inclusion advocates, not only here at MCW, but at our partner hospitals of Froedtert and Children's Hospital. not only do those diversity advocates at those hospitals have great insight on things that have worked for them and have great ideas for what we could do at Kaleidoscope, but our students are doing their clinical rotations there and interacting with staff pretty regularly. So we wanted to make sure we're reaching out to those staff members to come to our events, as well as our faculty, who are the physicians that work there as well. And of course, we asked our students. We're doing this for students, so we wanted to get their input, especially the URM students. We wanted to hear what issues they might have encountered, what specific topics they would love to hear about, who we should bring in as speakers, how do we get in other students? Of course, they said food. We always offer food at our events. So we took into account everything that these key people have told us when creating the events, and something that we did start doing in order to create the events is start with themed month topics. This can be controversial because a lot of people don't feel like Black history should only be talked about during February, or women's history should only be talked about in March, but we have to remember that Kaleidoscope wasn't really a thing yet. So we had to tie on to some other programming that was already going on here at MCW with these themed months, so that people could start learning about us and seeing what we were all about. We don't have to do that so much anymore. Every once in a while, it works out that way though. So some questions for you to consider are, who are the stakeholders on your campus that you should be bringing to the table? Students are usually critical. Faculty members maybe who have a stake at this. Maybe it's administration who have particular things that they need to focus on for the vision and mission of the institution. Maybe they have funding ideas. Maybe it's community members, especially if your diversity issue you might have identified earlier is regarding the overall community. And what are those specific diversity topics you want to address on your campus? More so specific, like we talked about Black History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, things like that. Do you want to focus on a specific population, ethnicities, or overall diversity? Because at Kaleidoscope, we focus on all sorts of diversity topics. So once we had our idea of how we wanted Kaleidoscope to be what it is, we had to come up with a branding and communications plan. This is critical here at MCW because we are a heavily research institution. Our medical and graduate students are pretty focused on studying, so we had to make sure what we were doing is drawing them in. We wanted to grab their attention, make sure it was well communicated so they knew what it was, knew how it would help them, and what would make them get there. So we had to pull on a outside graphic designer. Since we are a health sciences university, we do not have an art program to draw on. So a lot of people can often draw on their art students to help them with that. We couldn't do that, and we just didn't have support in that area at the time. But we were able to work with our graphic designer who has done other work for us in our office, and our communications team. We all worked together to come up with a really good branding solution and a communications plan. All together, we decided on our program name, which was Kaleidoscope, because it was representative of the different myriads of diversity. We had the tagline that was a pun, a program series with a diversity lens, lent to a kaleidoscope, as well as the film series portion of our program. We came up with branding colors that fit with the MCW branding, because that's very important, but we made sure it was also representative of diversity. So those deep purples, a variety of purples and blues and greens. Further, we have a logo that can be recognized pretty much anywhere. People know what that logo is, and our other branding materials our graphic artist was able to put together for us. So just some examples of our very first event. This was our first flyer, our first email banner that was sent out to a campus-wide, or for a campus-wide communication, so people would get introduced to the idea of Kaleidoscope. And as you can see, that logo is, it makes a statement so people know what it is. Below the email banner, you will see we have various icons with specific words tied to them. That's a thing that was going on at MCW where people promoted their programs. They used icons with specific words that described their program. So we decided to do that as well. And it helped us create our mission and promotional statement. Basically, we said we aim to provide programs for members of the MCW community to explore topics of diversity and inclusion in order to foster ways to grow. We believe this will create opportunities to connect and expand upon what we think about diversity. And we hope you join us for upcoming films and research forums. So again, communications and branding has really helped us promote Kaleidoscope and made it what it is, just having that standard brand on everything we do. So we really want you to think about what resources you have on your campus to help you with that, because it's been so helpful for us in what we do. Are you able to pull outside externally? It was helpful to have that external graphic artist to give us some insight that maybe we didn't see. Or maybe you have a very strong communications team and marketing department. Maybe you have students to draw on. Maybe you yourself have graphic art skills. I will say that we couldn't continue working with the graphic artists due to costs and everything. So Adrienne and I have taken over creating all of our flyers and other communications materials. So we've learned that aspect of it too, and it goes over okay so far.
All right, so far we've shared with you kind of the framework of how Kaleidoscope was put together. And so as you can see, there's a lot of details that have gone into it. And so in addition to planning and putting Kaleidoscope together, there is a lot of details that go into the actual program day. And so what we did was we developed a program plan that helps us plan every single detail, from picking a topic until the closing remarks at the end of each session. And so we wanted to make sure that we were consistent with the things that we do, but from the beginning to end, there's a lot of details and planning that goes into it. So to keep from overwhelming you today, we have selected a few of those main details that we think are very important for you to consider, and some of the things that you want to do first. The first thing that we do when planning our day is that we select a topic. And so lately we've been picking topics that have been suggestions from other people. We've also have selected topics that are relevant to things that are going on right now in the media. Like, for example, earlier this year, we did the topic on sexism, which was related to the Me Too movement. We also did a session on DACA, which happened to be very in the media at the time when we did it. And then other times we just pick topics that perhaps we've heard of, or something that might be personal to us. But once we've decided on what the topic is, the next thing we do is we identify a film related to that topic. And that can be just as simple as Googling a documentary that's related to that topic. More often than not, we find a whole lot of videos or films that are related to that topic. There's also usually a trailer associated with it, so then we can watch a little bit of the film and see if it relates to the direction we want to go in. We also try to make sure that the film we choose is up to date. We try to pick a film that's usually within the last 10 years and make sure it's still relevant. And then we also make sure that we obtain the educational license that goes with it. That's very important to us. We want to make sure that we are using the films appropriately. And so after we identified our film, then the next thing we do is we identify our speaker. We usually choose our speaker who is either an MCW faculty member or a community member who is doing work around that topic. We are fortunate enough that we are a medical institution, that we have a lot of people at our fingertips to pick from. And so once we identify a speaker related to that topic, we usually just send them an email and kind of introduce ourselves. We tell them a little bit about Kaleidoscope and what we're trying to do. And I don't think I can think of one time that we reached out to somebody and they actually turned us down. So we usually have been very fortunate with that as well. So once we have our speaker on board, then we work closely with them throughout the planning process to do the program layout. So the program layout can consist of their presentation style. So if they plan on using a PowerPoint, which they don't have to, or what parts of the film they want to show or don't want to show. As I mentioned earlier, our sessions are only an hour long, and more times than not, our films are longer than an hour. So we're not able to show the entire film. However, we do offer it for people to check out at a later date and time so they can watch the entire film. And so we work with the speaker to kind of lay out all of those little fine details. We also ask them for a bio to read, to introduce them the day of the event, and we also get a headshot from them to put on our flyer. The next thing that we do is we secure a date and a location, which is very important. We typically do well over 100 people at each session, and so our locations are sometimes limited to find spaces that accommodate those numbers on our campus. So that's something you also want to think about. Like, do you have space on your campus to host these sessions? Once we have our location, the next thing we do is we work with our speaker on a date that works best for their schedule. We usually are pretty flexible and working around their availability because we appreciate them giving us their time and being a part of our event. And so once we have all of that taken care of, then we create a electronic RSVP link where people can go in and RSVP, letting us know as any other RSVP that they will be attending. We also provide them in the link information about the topic, the film, the date and time, just as a reminder. We gather information from them that includes like their name, their department, their institution. We also get their email address, which is a great way for us to develop an email list, or we can send email reminders on any updates or anything like that we might have to do. And then it also allows us to be able to obtain any dietary restrictions or food allergies they may have, because we do provide lunch as well. So once we have our topic, once we've identified our film, our speaker, we know the date and location, then we're able to start promoting for our event. The first thing that we usually do is we create a flyer. So we take all of the information that I shared with you before, we put it on the flyer. Again, it includes the topic, the date, the location, information about the session, who the speaker is going to be, and it also includes their headshot. We typically use our flyers to do mail drops. So not only are we putting flyers in every department mailbox on our campus, but we're also doing it at our neighboring hospital, Freighter. We put flyers in all of their mailboxes. We also work with our campus communications department to send out campus-wide emails to our campus as well as the neighboring partner hospitals. We also post to internal sites, so our campus calendar, so people can know when it's coming up, as well as to our Kaleidoscope webpage. We also use digital media boards that are posted throughout our campus where people can actually see the flyer and the promotion in passing. We invite specific student organizations and campus departments and community organizations. We send them an email, we let them know what we have going on, we send them a flyer, and we encourage them to share that with others as well. Another huge promotional thing that we do is we use our social media, which right now we have a Twitter and a Facebook page. We hope to eventually venture out to Instagram and Snapchat and all those cool social media sites that people use now. But for now, we just have Twitter and Facebook, which has been very helpful for us, not only to be able to promote, but also where people can give us suggestions. It's a place where people can ask questions and keep the conversations going after the session. We also have designated one representative from each class to help share our flyers on their individual social media pages as well. So after we're done promoting and getting everybody excited and amped about the day, it is showtime, it is program day. And so on program day, we typically try to be in the space that we reserved around 11 o'clock or so. So that way we can make sure everything is set up the way it's supposed to be. We can make sure technology is working the way that it's supposed to be. We encourage our speakers to arrive around 11:30 so we can work with them to make sure that they have everything that they need and that we have the film set up to where they would like for it to be. As I mentioned earlier, we do provide lunch. We usually start serving lunch around 11:45. We try to start a little early so that way people can have their food and be seated so we can start promptly at noon. During this time, we are also running a presentation slide where we're providing people that may be new to Kaleidoscope information about who we are and what we do. It's also an opportunity for us to share facts about the particular topic that we're doing for that day, as well as define certain names or topics if we have to. Then we start right at 12, and we begin with a welcome. We thank people for coming. We also use this opportunity as to promote our social media pages. And then we use the bio that we obtained earlier from our speaker to do a brief introduction. After we do our introduction, then we pretty much turn it over to the speaker to start the session. So they can either go right into their presentation or they can start the film right away. After their presentation and the film, then it's open for discussion. And we usually leave it up to the speaker if they want to do small group discussions where they pose a question to a smaller group and have them discuss it in smaller groups for about 10 or 15 minutes, or they can just pose a question to the larger group as a whole and then discuss things that way. We completely leave it up to the speaker. And then after the discussion, we ask the speaker to give us like the last 2 or 3 minutes just for closing, to remind people to do their evaluations, to promote the next upcoming event. And so that's what a typical program day does look like. It's a lot, as I mentioned earlier, that goes into that. But that's how it looks on our campus. We want you to start thinking about how this might look on your campus. So for us, it's more convenient for us to have the sessions during the lunch hour because that's more convenient for our student schedule and most times more convenient for our faculty and our staff schedule as well. But on your campus, it might not work between 12 and 1. You might have to do it in the evening time, and you might only be able to provide a light snack versus lunch as we do. It's completely open to you. Again, we're just giving you the framework and we're sharing with you what works on our campus. And so another question to consider is who would you reach out to lead your sessions? Again, as I mentioned earlier, because we're fortunate enough to be a medical institution where we have people at our fingertips, but would you have people on your campus who will be able to lead these sessions? Or would you have to lean towards more people who are in the community? So those are just some things for you to start thinking about and considering as you're thinking about doing a program like Kaleidoscope.
So Adrienne just went over all the details that go into planning one event. And for the most part, because we are so detail oriented with this, it goes generally pretty smoothly. Obviously, we have our hiccups now and then, but it wasn't always that smooth. So we do want to share with you our kickoff event that we did back in March of 2016. As you know, we already mentioned that Adrienne and I started here at the end of 2015 and early 2016. So it took us a few months to gather all our information and program plan to start our first event. So as I mentioned earlier, we did start tying in with themed months. So in March 2016, we did Women's History Month. We were very fortunate to have our Associate Dean for Faculty Affairs and Women's Leadership lead the first film session. She met with us several times to figure out what discussion questions to use, how everything should flow, what works best for her, what her typical experience is with leading a session such as this. We picked out a film called I Am a Girl that dealt with the girl experience throughout the world, from education to childbirth to poverty, and she was able to pick which vignettes of the film she wanted to use for it. Then after that session, we met with 2 faculty members who are doing clinical research, more so regarding the lack of women being a part of clinical trials and how that's a problem. We've worked with them for a while via email and a couple in-person meetings to really put together a presentation that was not over everybody's head, but still very research-based and informative about why the lack of women in clinical trials is a problem here and in medicine. So we had these 2 sessions in March. We started off with a bang, we went all in. And what we learned from it was a result of our after-action review. We had a very formal after-action review with not only Adrienne and myself, but everybody who helped us out in the sessions and our speakers. And we still do after action reviews, kind of just in passing more so, but not as formal as this. But when you are starting an event, I would really recommend doing a formal sit-down meeting to go over these things, because it really helped us set the precedent for future sessions that we do. Many of you probably do this for your programs, but just to go over what we kind of did, we went over what went right. So for us, we were very organized. We had the flyers for the next session out at the tables in each spot, our paper evals out in each spot, the discussion guidelines out on the tables. We had pens and pencils. We had the food line organized. People really appreciated that. What went wrong? As always, technology always goes wrong. We actually had a session today and we had some technology issue earlier today, and sometimes with this webinar, we had technology issues. So we learned that we do have to engage our media services team a little more often and bring them in to help us with microphones, with film sound, to make sure that the volume's right at every aspect of the film, not just the beginning, because it gets softer sometimes. What to do different? The major thing was we collected all these RSVPs with the emails, but we didn't think to send a reminder email in the morning of the event. So there were a lot of people signed up, which we were excited for, and not everybody showed up, which it happens, and we still had a pretty good turnout, but we could have had more probably if we sent the reminder, because people signed up weeks in advance and then forgot to put it on their calendar, or just completely forgot in general that it was happening, or they thought maybe they forgot they RSVP'd and couldn't come. So we do send out the reminder email every morning before our event, or the afternoon before, just to remind people that they signed up and where we're located so they know where to go. Then we talk about actions and considerations moving forward. The biggest thing that we learned from these two events is that we have to have food at our events. So they're over the lunch hour. The first session, we were able to get some funding to provide a pretty decent lunch, and the second session was a little bit lighter. Because originally in our funding, it wasn't allocated. There was no food budget allocated for Kaleidoscope, so we had to pull elsewhere to do this. So the second session, we didn't have quite as much food, and it was definitely noted on the evals. We are asking people to give up their lunch hour to be with us, so we really do feel like we need to provide them something. So in addition to the after action reviews, or just the comments that we have in passing of how things went, we do an evaluation, and as we've mentioned, it's a paper evaluation. We have tried the electronic links for evaluations, and it just doesn't get the response rate that we really want to have. People leave the session thinking they'll do it later because they're in a hurry. They can't sit down and do that right there, or they forget if they've even done it. And right now our system doesn't allow for us to do unique identifiers for these mass evals yet, or at least we haven't figured out how to do that. So we're sticking with paper evals, which can be a pain for us because Adrienne and I are the one who compile them, and we tend to have over 100 evals per event. So that often means taking them home to do them, or finding free time here and there to get them all compiled, because we do send a report to our facilitators, and we keep it on record for our funder and also the institution to see the value that Kaleidoscope has on our campus. Overall, we have, because we do the paper evals, we have above an 80% response rate, which is pretty good. So we want to keep doing that. We get really good feedback and ratings overall. As you can see, the three areas that we've really talked about lately is increasing awareness of diversity issues affecting healthcare, increasing sensitivity towards diverse beliefs, values, traditions, and practices of a culture, and also understanding how to be more effective at fostering equity. We always get over 90% of people strongly agreeing that the session has helped them do that. So we are really proud of that and hope we can continue that. As you saw, we have a couple open-ended questions on our eval. We generally get a lot of thank yous for holding this session, or I didn't know this, and it's so nice to have an opportunity to discuss this and learn more in a non-judgmental setting. Please continue doing this, but we do have some things that allow us to consider growth for the program. We always get the comment at least 5 times of, please have a longer event so we can view the entire film or have more discussion around this. So today we had a session and the speaker decided they really loved the film and they showed most of the film and really didn't leave a lot of time for discussion before people had to get up and leave. And I would anticipate that some people are going to be really happy that they saw most of the film, and other people would have wanted more time for discussion. So our audience knows that we can't go past that lunch hour because there are students who have to go back to class. There are clinicians who need to go back to clinic, staff members who just need to go back to their desk. Like, they know that we can't exceed that hour, but they always want more. So the next suggestion is always having a follow-up session on the session, if that makes sense. Having an extended session and topic for it. Which we've done here and there when like student orgs have asked us to work with them to do that, but we can't do it for every event. It's only Adrienne and I really running these. We don't have the bandwidth in addition to our other duties with the programs that we run and advise to. That is something for us to look into in the future. We always get food suggestions. Believe it or not, it is really tough to find a lot of places that do an extensive amount of dietary restrictions like gluten-free and vegan at an affordable price. So we do have a couple go-to places, but we can't do the same thing over and over. So people are always suggesting different food, which we'll take into consideration here and there. We always get topic suggestions, and we try to follow that as much as we can because we do want to give our campus what they're asking for. The logistical concerns always come into play, like volume, temperature, and location. We really only have 4 locations on our campus that we can hold an event this big because we do average well over 120 people at our events now. And only 2 of those 4 locations really allow for the small group conversation. So depending on where we can get our location, some people might comment that it wasn't the best for a group setting. And then, of course, our audience always likes a takeaway. They want something concrete that they can take back with them. So if the speaker is doing so much film and just providing so much knowledge on the topic, but doesn't provide something that you can do in order to foster equity or to make the situation better, the audience members have different feelings about that. So we always try to encourage our speakers to provide something concrete that people can do after the event. So today, our speaker listed off tons of things that people could take away, so much so that I created a separate handout for people to take with them, like a literal takeaway. So that was helpful.
Okay, so just like with any other event you may have planned in the past or any programs that you've developed, there will always be challenges. So I just wanted to share with you some of the challenges that we have experienced. So as we talked about several times, space has sometimes been a challenge for us. Food has sometimes been a challenge just because we're on a grant. We have to work within a budget, so that kind of limits the variety of food that we can have. Like today, we kind of had long lines because of a food choice that we chose, but we have been successful, I believe, in working through all of those different things. We also, again, are limited to what we can do within our grant, which also limits some of the things that we would like to do. Overall, I think that we have done a great job of overcoming all of these challenges. We have a great team that helps support us. We work well together to kind of work through all those things. And I think we've been doing it long enough where we have been able to overcome these things successfully. So, in addition to challenges, of course, there's always successes, hopefully. For us, some of those successes include increased attendance over the last 2 years, whereas I think our smallest number has been as little as 45, and our largest number have been well over 200. And so that is a great success for us. We've also have received acknowledgement from our School of Medicine, so our Dean/Provost. We continue to see positive evals after every session. We have had campus departments reach out to us asking to partner with us because, as we shared, we usually do large numbers, and it's a great opportunity to work with other departments and help get the word out about their particular events and messages. We also have built great relationships, being able to work with people within the community. It's a great opportunity for them to come to our campus and share information about the great work that they're doing. It also brings resources to our campuses that can be provided to our campus where they can be more involved and work to, help us address some of these issues that we talk about. And then one of the other big successes is that we have received recognition through NCORE. So not only are we able to do the webinar here with you today, we also were in New Orleans earlier in May this year, where we did a poster presentation about Kaleidoscope as well. So those are some of the successes that we've had. It's great to be able to receive those recognitions. But I think our biggest success is being able to do these sessions and some of the things that have come out of the sessions that we've done. We wanted to share some examples with you of some of the sessions that we've done where great things have been able to come from them. So the first thing is, on our first year anniversary, we did the topic of microaggressions. So the title of that session was The Thing About Microaggressions. We worked with the local racial justice director at our local YWCA, Martha Berry, and she came in and she led the session. And we discussed what microaggressions were, some of the things, the types of microaggressions there are, and how they might be offensive to people and things like that. But the biggest thing that came from that was that we were able to create a short in-house video that was related to MCW. And so we wanted to be able to show that for you all today, but unfortunately it wasn't working with the webinar platform. And so what we did was we took some clips from the video, and these, as you can see there on your screen, these are our actual MCW students who shared some of the microaggressions that they've heard before. So things like being called an Oriental lady, and being second guessed if you are an actual doctor, and then saying things like you're not Hispanic enough, or people asking you who you are. So these are all things that our students experience, and I think that this made that session that more powerful, because it wasn't students from another campus, it wasn't students that our presenter was talking about, it was actually our students, and I think that made it real for people. And so after people got a chance to see the video, they got to talk in pairs and share with each other how the video made them feel. They also got to share in larger groups microaggressions they may have heard, possibly here at MCW, and then just how those microaggressions made them feel. So again, it was a very powerful session. I think a great thing came out of it. It was a great way for our campus to see what our students were experiencing. Some of the other topics that we've covered, as you can see right here, this is a list of some of the films that we showed. We wanted to highlight a few of those, again, to kind of address some of the things that have been coming from our sessions. I mentioned earlier this year, we did a session on DACA. We showed the film Dreamers to Doctors. We had a panel of undocumented students come in and talk about their experiences with DACA and how it's been helpful for them. I think that was great for our campus to see, great for our admissions department to see, in hopes that, some of the things that other campuses are doing, we can incorporate as well to help support undocumented students. Another film that we showed was called My Brooklyn, which discussed gentrification. And although it was specific, the film was specific to Brooklyn, we were able to relate it to the gentrification that is taking place here in Milwaukee locally. One of our student orgs here, which is titled PUMA, which stands for Partnerships for Urban Medical Education Advancement. And so they reached out to us and wanted to explore this topic. And so we had the speaker come in, and this was one of those opportunities where we were able to have an extended session, and the speaker was able to stay longer and speak with our students. So we were able to help support our students and in their efforts and what they were doing in their student org. And then finally, we showed a film called Struggling in Silence, which dealt with physician depression and suicide, which was very real for our campus because, of course, we're a medical institution. We did this session last year, and we also brought it back again this year just because it made such an impact and it was such a good session. And during this session, one of our students actually got up and spoke about her personal experiences with anxiety and depression and suicide. And again, another powerful session that I think made a great impact on our campus, where our hope is that more support will be put in place to help support our students, because we all know medical education can be really stressful. And so these are some of the great things that have come from our sessions. I think we are doing really good at reaching our mission of providing awareness, understanding. Some people come into our sessions not aware of these topics at all because they never had to think about them. We are providing understanding because people come in thinking they know so much about a topic, and we're able to provide background information. And so now they understand it a little bit more. You know, we're creating relationships not only on our campus, but off campus. You know, we're creating a space where people can come in and share and receive resources and go out and help in the community, which is a big part of why we do Kaleidoscope. And so, you know, for me, that is one of our biggest successes outside of all the recognition that we've received. So,
and if I can just add to that, I think another success is a lot of our programs give voice to people to share their stories, whether it was our DACA students or the student that Adrienne mentioned that was able to talk about her experience, her mental health experience throughout medical school, because some of these things are just not talked about, and then people feel a little bit more empowered to share their story. So we do want to share this film list with you. We might have a few more to add since we've made this, actually, and we'll try our best to share that video with you as well that we referenced. It wasn't working with this platform, and because it is a big file, and that's probably why it didn't work, we might not be able to send it out, but we will try our best to do that. So it does sound like Kaleidoscope costs a lot of money, and I'm not saying that it doesn't, but there are definitely ways that we can kind of curb our spending a little bit. We do have funding. We're very, very fortunate to have funding through the Advancing a Healthier Wisconsin Endowment. But we do try to be fiscally responsible as much as possible because we know we won't always have this money, and our hope is that we can continue on this program beyond our grant. So we are showing our films to a large audience. We do have to get the educational licensing as well as any public performance rights. On average, it's about $180, though it ranges from $0 to almost $400. Believe me, there are films that cost a lot more than that. We try to stay away from them as much as we can. There are some films or videos that are just on websites that don't have any licensing with them. We always try to reach out to those websites and the directors to see if there is something that a fee we should be paying. And there have been some, like the American Muslims film we showed a year ago about, they were just happy that we were talking about the subject and showing the film to a group of people, so they didn't charge us anything. We do have funding for honorariums for outside speakers, so much so that we can bring in national speakers and pay for an honorarium and travel. However, we haven't really done that yet so much. The furthest our speakers have come from are Chicago or Madison, which are both about an hour and a half away from Milwaukee. Mostly just because we've been able to draw on our faculty members who we don't have to pay because they are in kind. We can't pay them an honorarium, and our local community is already doing a lot of great work around these subjects. So we want to bring in what Milwaukee is doing and what very close areas are doing to support our diversity efforts. So we do offer an honorarium to our speakers that are coming outside. The average is about $265. The people who have come from Madison or Chicago, we do include their mileage as well. Because we're so appreciative of them coming. But sometimes we work with nonprofits that are unable to accept an honorarium because it's that coordinator's job to go out and speak about these things. We will try to work with the organization, though, for them to invoice us so we can support the local organization and indirectly provide an honorarium to them so that they continue doing the great work that they do. Our most expensive cost is food, of course. And since we don't spend as much on honorariums, we were able to get money reallocated towards food because that originally was not in the grant, and it has been critical. That branding and food has been critical to our success at Kaleidoscope. We have an average of 126 attendees. That's about how many we had at today's event. And on average, it costs about $750, depending on what we order. So depending on the number of people and how much we order, it can be as low as like $400 if we're ordering pizza or sandwiches. People get sick of that, and there's not a lot of gluten-free or vegan options with those things. So we do have to mix it up here and there. Sometimes the more we spend on things, it's because we want to do something special. So for example, this past July, we had a session with a film called Black in Latin America. So we decided to tie that in with the food. We reached out to a local restaurant that our speaker actually recommended to us, who was a good friend of his. And they catered our food. They were able to provide Puerto Rican food, Dominican food, and Colombian food for the event, and it was amazing because it was a local restaurant and made from scratch, and we probably racked up more business for them because people kept asking us where we got it from. So I'm sure people are reaching out to them or going to their restaurant more often, but it costs a little bit more because it was a small local business, and we can't do that every time, but we do want to support our community and reach out to those local businesses, especially for a diversity related event. So overall, our total average cost per attendee is $8.20. That doesn't sound like a lot, but I know that definitely can add up. And there are ways that we're going to have to look at condensing our costs a little bit in hopes that we can continue Kaleidoscope moving on. Some things that we have done in the past is partner with different departments. Adrienne mentioned that departments are asking to partner with us. So last November for Global Health Week, the Office of Global Health asked us to partner with them, and they were able to provide the lunch for everybody while we provided like water and film and everything too. So there are ways around that. Definitely partnering can really help you out. Some future plans we have for Kaleidoscope. Evaluation is big, as Adrienne mentioned. We have about 2 years left on our grant, and we do extensive evaluations for each individual event, but we need to do some broader evaluations. We are in the works with our Office of Diversity and Inclusion to hopefully see if we can get a question on our diversity engagement survey for the campus regarding just if people are aware of Kaleidoscope and what its goal is, and if it's done anything for them. We also are in the midst of designing an overall participant survey that the goal is to get out at the end of this year, early next year. We really just need to work on tweaking things and structuring things so we can understand the demographics of the people who are coming to our events, also what they get from it, what they want to see in future Kaleidoscopes, how they hope it grows, if they really find it to be valuable on our campus and needs to stay on our campus. We're working on that. We're going to use that listserv that we gather from our RSVPs for each event to send out to people. We also want to hear specifically from our students, especially our URM students. One of our goals with this program was to create a more welcoming environment for all students. And we do know that a couple times our URM matriculation rates for first-year medical students has gone up, but we have no idea if it's because of Kaleidoscope. We haven't asked. We do know that our admissions recruiter for the medical school does really talk up Kaleidoscope, and we know that students really appreciate diversity programs when they're looking into medical schools, and they're looking for that. They want things like that to be a part of. We also know that on our second look day last spring, when admitted students came to MCW to get a second look, they came to our table and were asking us about Kaleidoscope and saying that they heard about it and wanted to know more. So we know that there's an interest there, but we just don't know if it's a specific reason why students might decide to come here. So we do either want to try to hold focus groups or maybe do another student survey if that's easier, though we don't want our students to experience survey fatigue either. So we're going to have to pinpoint that a little bit more. Other non-evaluation related things, we are also working on a presenter or topic request form. We get so many requests on topics and people wanting to partner and have their topic you talked about at Kaleidoscope. Sometimes they go with our mission very well. Sometimes they don't align with our mission as much, and that requires a lot of emails and meetings. So we are going to work on a streamlined form that people can submit, so we can easily pick which topics should be done and who should speak for them. And it will definitely help us in the long run because we won't be the ones searching for films and stuff too. We also want to partner more with our student organizations. Obviously, we do this for the students. I keep saying that. We want to hear what they want to see at these Kaleidoscope sessions. So one example would be, we haven't done so much around Asian culture and different Asian cultures. So we want to reach out to our Asian Pacific American Medical Student Association, I believe a PAMSA, lots of acronyms here, to see what they might want to see in Kaleidoscope, because they are very active at the MCW community and the Milwaukee community. They do a lot of great work. We want to see what maybe we can partner with on them to have a great Kaleidoscope event as well. So in true Kaleidoscope form, we do want to provide you some takeaways.
All right, so we have provided you with a lot of information today. We hope that it has been helpful in encouraging you to want to start a program like Kaleidoscope on your campus. Some of the main things that we want you to think about and focus on when you're thinking about doing that is, number one, what are the needs on your campus? So again, what is the issue that you would like to address? What is the issue that is most important to your campus? Also, as I mentioned earlier, funding is a big thing that you want to think about, because as Crystal broke down the prices, it can add up very quickly. And then also, do you have the bandwidth to manage a program like Kaleidoscope? As we shared, there's a lot of details that go into the planning. And so we just want to make sure that you understand that you definitely will need help with that. And so who would you have on your campus to help assist? And then again, finally, what would a program like Kaleidoscope look like on your campus? Again, we share with you details on how it looks on our campus, but you have to determine how it will look on your campus, what fits your campus needs best. And so, again, we hope the information has been helpful to you. We hope that it has been inspiring to you. And we hope that it is a start to something new that you can begin on your campus, and that you have as much success with it as we have on your campus as well. So again, we want to thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate all of you and the interest that you've shown. And
yeah, I can see that we have tons of questions coming in, and we definitely are going to get to that. It's kind of hard to do both the webinar and answer questions at the same time, but we do want to make sure that you have our email addresses. If you think of something later, we're always open to answering questions, or if you have ideas for us, we'll take that too. We appreciate that as well. So feel free to contact us. We also want to make sure that we're giving big thanks to our program manager in our office, Jean Mallet. She has been critical in helping us with this program and really leading us and helping us with our vision. So we want to make sure she's recognized. And I also want to give a shout out to our Ryan, our media services team, and specifically Ryan today helped us with this webinar kind of last minute. Thank you. And I guess we'll go into questions if that's okay.
Yeah, I will definitely take the questions.
Okay.
So we had 7 questions so far. If you guys have other questions, please use the Q&A box. So one question is, in regards to your 1 hour time frame, in instances of longer movie duration, how do you break up the time in order to get for those table discussions? I feel there's some feedback. Are there 2 computers?
Yes.
Okay, could you mute one? Okay. So for example, 30 minutes for a movie, 30 minutes for a table discussion. Do you pre-screen the movies and the most impactful moments?
We actually do. We typically work with whoever our speaker is to identify the portions of the film that we want to show. Usually that is based on the direction that they want to go in, is based on the parts that they feel are more relevant to what we're trying to get our audience to learn. And so that could be anywhere from the first 15 minutes, it could be the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes in the middle, and then the last 5 minutes. It's just really, we leave it up to the speaker. And we usually try to break it down to at least 20 to 30 minutes and no longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in addition, because we know people always want to see the entire film, and I don't blame them because they're really good, but we just don't have the time to do it. We do have the films available for checkout, and every once in a while we're lucky enough that the film we're choosing, we're able to, it's a streaming version that we're able to post on our internal site, so people can have access to it as long as they're on campus.
So I think what happens is that if there are two people speaking at one time, you can't hear folks. So I'll ask the question and I'll mute Crystal and Adrienne. Can you guys hear me now? I heard that you all can't hear me. I will repeat the question. It says, in regards to your 1 hour event time frame, in instances of longer movies duration, how do you break up the time in order to create room for those table discussions? So like 30 minutes for a movie, 30 minutes for the table discussions. Do you pre-screen the movies and choose the most impactful moments? So I'm going to mute myself, but they already answered the question though. So let's move on to the second question, which is, can you speak more specifically to the barriers you experience regarding the discussion groups and presentations? And I'm gonna unmute you now.
Oh, okay. So there's a variety of barriers, and it depends on the topic and the group. Of course, there's not really a clean-cut answer to this. I would say, as far as the groups and discussion go, there's some rooms that lend to better discussion than others. We have 2 auditoriums here, and sometimes those are the only rooms available to us, so we can't really have group discussion. Though in the other 2 rooms that we're usually lucky enough to book, we can have table groups very easily. And sometimes there's just people that want more of that group discussion time, and because they're allowed to really think about it more and talk off of each other rather than in a big group setting having to process everything. And some people don't like it at all. So those are barriers that I see. Sometimes there's not time to do it. Our speakers don't leave enough time to do it. Anything else, Adrienne?
And we usually try to work with our speakers in advance to make sure that the session will flow as best as possible. So we usually say, you know, we need the first 2 or 3 minutes, then you have 20, 30 minutes for your presentation and film. And then if we could leave the rest for questioning. For the most part, that works out. Sometimes it just doesn't, but we do it to the best of our ability. So like today, as Crystal mentioned earlier, the speaker showed a lot more film than we usually show. And so there was not a lot of room for discussion. But that's just how it is sometimes. So we do our best to make sure that we have a balance, but it's not always possible.
Okay, so can you give a few examples of some of the takeaways that your previous presenters have given to your attendees at the end of the presentations?
Well, I can draw on today because that's most fresh in my mind, obviously, but maybe Adrienne can start thinking of some more too. Today, our film was called Including Samuel, and it was about inclusive education, especially around the topic of disabilities. And our presenter worked in physical medicine and rehabilitation, so she's a physician that works very commonly with this topic. So she had a lot to say on it. Including like how you can make an impact in the community. She suggested joining a Facebook group that provides more information, but more tangibly, she offered some phrases to try to avoid and ones to stay instead. So instead of disabled child, it's a child with or he or she is a child with a disability. Things like that, or just things to keep in mind when you are talking to people who have disabilities, such as if somebody's in a wheelchair, don't talk over them to somebody else, just being mindful of your space. Things like that. Did you think of anything else?
I didn't, but that's typically what a takeaway would look like. It just depends on what the topic is. The takeaway may be ways that they can get involved. The takeaway may be resources that they can use for themselves or someone that they know, like a organization or that they can utilize. So it's usually things like that for the most part.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, another question is, what kind of focused programs have you offered regarding LGBTQ and or other communities?
So we've actually done this topic twice. The first time our focus was that just learning the different terms that are used in the LGBT community, what LGBTQ stands for, terms that they usually use, how to interact with them, how our physicians and our students can interact with them, and what are some of the things that they want from people. So we were able to cover a lot of that in our first session. We brought it back again this year, and our focus was specific to just transgender. And so again, a lot of experiences that were shared that transgenders usually have, some of the things that we can do. And again, it was another powerful session because it made it more real for you to understand the things that they go through and the things that they have to deal with, and some of the things that we don't think about because we only know like the surface things. So to actually hear from transgender people and things like that helps to make it more real for people. So
yeah, sorry. Yeah, we've had a session specifically on gender, and then we did have a local organization come in to talk about LGBT healthcare. And then the film that Adrienne's referring to that we did this summer was called Trans. Well, yes. So, and indirectly, we've done it 3 times. And I know there was a question about other populations too. So we do all aspects of diversity. We have one coming up regarding just different personality styles and communication styles. We have environmental health coming up. We did one about working parents too, and the diversity in that, as well as perinatal depression. So we go all over the board because we do recognize there's different aspects of diversity.
Okay, and our last question is, what do your follow-up sessions look like? For example, how long after the first program do you host the follow-up?
So I guess we might need clarification if we meet and follow up as far as the next Kaleidoscope session, because we really don't do the follow-up sessions as far as like the individual topics. That's something that we want to do, but we don't have the bandwidth to do. The times that we have been able to is when a specific student organization has worked with us. The one that Adrienne mentioned with our Puma organization was really the students just stayed after to talk to the speaker because the students work in the community and they wanted to talk to the speaker more about his experiences. It wasn't anything fancy, but we haven't been able to do like a follow-up session on topics later. We've talked about it, we just don't have the bandwidth for that yet. But as far as like our next Kaleidoscope session that's on a completely different topic, we usually have it ready to go, like the branding and the promotions ready to go by the event, so we can start promoting the next one.
Sometimes we do have the opportunity to bring the topic back again, but our purpose and our point is really just to get the conversation started, and again provide those takeaways and resources where people can start doing things on their own. There are so many different topics out there, and we do our best to try to cover as many as we can. And so the follow-up is really in the hands of people. Like if they continue to reach out to us for resources, we can probably lead them in the right direction. We often try to provide the speaker's email address so they can also follow up with them later with more questions if they want. But again, we don't always have a follow-up session.
So I just want to say thank you to Crystal and Adrienne for our first webinar. I'm excited about sort of the future of this. I definitely want to send a shout out to our former executive director, Dr. Jane Arungu. Though the webinar series have been in discussion at the Southwest Center for Human Relations for quite some time, Dr. Arungu really spearheaded it and pushed this vision forward, so we thank her for that. And so if you have any other questions for Crystal and for Adrienne, you have their email address. If you have any questions for me, you have my email address, or you can shoot an email to ncorewebinars@ou.edu. But we thank you very much for participating, and we hope to see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.